everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's event entitled Mediation Blowups, Amygdala Hijacking. It's great to see you all here, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day wherever you're based in the world. So as usual, I'm going to just start by going through some information about Mediate Guru. So Mediate Guru is a social initiative led by members across the globe, and our aim is to bridge the gap between the public and litigation by creating a social awareness campaign showcasing mediation as the future. We've successfully conducted various webinars promoting alternative dispute resolution and have a reach in over 60 countries around the world. And we aim to bring you access to the best speakers with the best lecture series so that you can add value to your legal studies and your legal career. So joining us today is one of our most committed speakers, Ms. Kathleen Ruane Leedy. Ms. Kathleen is a bi-coastal mediator trained in Atlanta, Georgia, and she now practices in Queens in New York. And since 2008, her diverse mediation career has spanned over 12 years of mediating cases in court and in private practice. She mediates on a wide range of issues, including small claims, divorce, workplace issues, and business disputes. And she teaches the 40-hour basic mediation class at Drake University Law School in Des Moines, Iowa. She's also been selected to author a chapter in a book entitled Worry-Free Divorce. And she's a frequent speaker for two colleges, the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Green River College in Auburn, Washington. She's also acted as a mediation role-play assistant at Harvard University and coached graduates from Massachusetts Institute of Technology in negotiation and conflict management. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kathleen to take the stage, and I'd like to remind you all that you can leave your questions and comments throughout in the chat box, and I monitor them very closely, so I'll keep an eye out for you. Okay, so over to you, Kathleen. Thank you.
So today, with this mediation blow-up topic, the amygdala hijack, I'm actually here to talk about a specific kind of client. This is the angry client who has more emotions than anyone else in the room. Nobody knows what to do with this client. They're very often loudmouth and seem immovable. This client can disturb mediators and lawyers and quickly become judged. Unfortunately, because they feel like they're just at the mediation table to argue, mediators can quickly develop a bias toward these angry clients, and now their neutrality has been compromised. So we're going to go ahead and look at this issue. Here again is my dedication to my small family, my daughters and my sister, who were the ones that said, please become a mediator. And I said, yes, I will. So did it.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Could you turn your video on, please?
My video is on that I can see. Hang on. Oh, we're having lots of problems today.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm looking at the video. I'm going to start a video. There's a video on the right. No, this is an okay. We're now ready for our third start. This might be the charm. This is my bio. It's just very lengthy because I said yes to everything that everybody wanted me to do in regard to mediation. So what I'd like to start talking about are the thinking and feeling that happens at the mediation table that elicits strong emotional responses. I want to say that parties have a story to tell at the mediation table, and their feelings also have a story to tell. And Phoebe, I just want to let you know that I cannot see a picture of myself, so I'm talking to my computer, just so you know, all right? This story that they tell with their thinking and the story that they tell with their emotions, I like to call it their narrative. And as a mediator, I regard this narrative as a life force. We have life forces in our body. We have a life force of air, we have a life force of blood, and we also have a life force of expressing ourselves. And this is very, very important to understand at the mediation table, where we can have these strong emotions from these angry clients that nobody really seems to know what to do about. So let's look at what's going on with this. We have a sentinel, a guard in the brain that's ready for action, that stands guarding and watching and listening and to everything that is being impacted in our brain. It's called the amygdala. It's located in the center of the brain. It's a small almond-shaped organ, and its sole purpose is to basically send our body into fight or flight, to preserve ourselves for survival. And what happens with this process, I provided a link here for everyone to look this up for more understanding, but what happens with this process is that the amygdala reroutes the blood supply to the back of the brain. The back of the brain is the older part of the brain. It's more primitive. It has more of it's the limbic brain. It's the reptilian brain. It's built for survival. And the only way the back of this brain thinks is us or them, survival. Either I'm okay or I'm not okay. And what happens with the situation in mediation is that the front of the brain that's responsible for executive thinking and maintaining our balance and our flexibility in life and being able to process information, the blood supply gets rerouted from the front of the brain to the back of the brain, and basically somewhere lowers our IQ abilities about 15 points. So this is a very big thing to have happen in the mediation process at the mediation table, where someone has now become angry. But this is what's happening. We have to remember that at the mediation table, people are going through this experience and they're not quite themselves. Life is wrong for them and they are upset. And they are located somewhere in the stages of grief, or they're somewhere in the stages of shock responses. And these are the clients that we have at the table, and they need this process and they need our help to basically move through this experience that they're having because of how life has been disrupted. So what's happening is that this hijack at the mediation table is caused by stress. There's a lot going on at the mediation table. And when a person gets upset, even when they yell, the sound waves in the room get compressed. And everybody can feel this energy, and it affects the mediators. And I'm asking the mediators to please maintain your position and help this person through the situation that's happening inside them that's causing them this stress, because they are not themselves right now. The mediator cannot run away, is what I like to say. And it's interesting because mediators do run away. And these are some of the ways that mediators run away. A client burst out with an angry statement, and the mediator may say, okay, so let's go ahead and have private session, or let's take a break, and everyone just go relax, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Or we'll have a private session and we'll talk to you privately about this. So what happens, the overarching message to this client is that you have caused a disruption and you have bothered the mediation table. The mediation table is not big enough to handle this issue. And now this throws a skew into the mediation. The skew is the person that hasn't been disruptive now kind of becomes the good guy, and the person that has become upset and has disrupted the mediation process and that is now vilified and can actually be thrown into a cycle of guilt and shame, because they can see, of course, that everyone is upset, including themselves. So I want to encourage mediators to not run away from this. We can handle this, and let's move forward to see what I think. We want to understand that emotions do erupt, and the executive functioning of the front of the brain does get eroded. So these people, I'm going to say again 15 times probably in this seminar, these people are not themselves. We need to do some things to help these people along, because they've lost pretty much a lot of their working memory, their flexibility, and their self-control because they're upset. They actually need more mediator attention from us, and we need to give it to them. We are going to help them by validating this blow up. We are going to hold the space, as I like to say from my past webinars, and we are going to maintain order organically. And the way that we hold the space in a mediation that's doesn't seem so pragmatic and so structured, is we just simply make sure that we're fully present. Fully present means that we are right there present with our client during this emotional outburst. We are not trying to fix this. And we're also, if it even happens, we're going to pull any kind of intellectual information out of this blow up, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually even write it down. This is a master skill. There's some skills in the mediator's toolbox, as I like to say, or the mediator up your sleeve, whatever you have as a mediator where you consider your skills to be located. This is a mastery skill. This holding the space and staying present with the client is extremely effective. Moving on to the next slide, we want to look at the space that we are holding. And this graphic that we talked about before is the inside that red circle that you can see. That is the space that we're actually holding, because we are at the mediation table with all these dynamics flowing. We've got someone that's upset, and inside this red space is where our mediator style, our confidence, and our courage is holding down the mediation for anything that happens. It's very, very important to have that confidence in ourselves and that courage to understand that we've got them. We've got our clients. So basically how this works is when people come to the mediation table, we bring all of our skills that we've learned in life. We bring our skills that we have learned from other mediators. We bring skills that we've tried on, because this is a praxis. Mediation is a praxis, is a dialogic praxis, because we actually are learning from our clients as we're mediating. We're learning from our co-mediator as we're mediating. And each time we sit down on our mediation table, we are going to learn something new. So because this is a praxis, we have skills that are ready to assist us through any situation in the mediation. So in this slide, I have circled to the bottom right, I have circled the skill of reiteration. Reiteration is my go-to skill. And reiteration is simply repeating what we've heard, maybe even a number of times for emphasis or clarity. And I find this skill is super overlooked. And for me, it is my most used mastery skill. Reiteration is not the picture on the left. It's just not throwing back the words that the client has said at the mediation table at them. It is actually on the right. Reiteration is actually making more clarity happen at the mediation table. So it kind of goes like this. A client says something, and mediators, we all know that we're supposed to summarize. And the way that my mastery skill of summarizing, especially when someone's upset, I will thank them for what they said, and I will say exactly back to them what I heard them say. What happens with this is the client has said this, the party has said this once at the table. So now all their words are out into the airwaves. I repeat back what they've said, and they're hearing now their words repeated back to them. And they can now weigh in and either agree with their initial statement, or they can change the words a little bit. I actually kind of joke about this and say that when someone's really upset and I'm doing reiteration as my mastery skill, I'm actually kind of becoming their prefrontal cortex that has lost 15 IQ points in them, while my prefrontal cortex hasn't lost 15 points in me. I am not swept up into their energy of being upset and angry. So I am going to help them by using their words to help them clarify and also to calm them down, because I'm validating what they said exactly. Reiteration is exactly validating what's happening at the mediation table. And here's what it looks like. It's kind of like this. What I just described, and reiteration like this takes memorization. So mediators need to learn to memorize people's words and at least pull out the key words when they summarize back to a party, especially when they're angry. especially when they're angry. And the more time you can spend clarifying with this person, the more calm they're going to become. Because when there's an amygdala hijack in the body, it can take about 20 minutes to kind of settle down. So it's very important that we use this process that actually protects the client's narrative. We want to validate them until they start to relax. I even say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 10 out of 10 for you. You are 10 out of 10 very upset right now. And they always say, yes, I am, because they are. So I'm sticking very close to validating exactly what's been happening here at the mediation table. The way that mediators summarize like this, because you don't want to repeat yourself in the same boring way, but please remember, clients are under shock, so they don't even realize most of the time that they're being reiterated or their exact words are being repeated. They're just so grateful that they're being validated. So these are the opening phrases for summarization. As I hear from you, and then I would say their exact words. As your mediator, I heard you say, and I switched this all up so I don't sound boring, or so they don't catch on that I'm actually parroting or copying the words. Right now you are saying, at the mediation table, I am hearing. I hear your words. We are hearing that you have just said. So all these ways of talking, let's see if I have this correctly. For you, this is about. That's one of the ones that I use oftentimes. I can see that. So these are the opening phrases that you need, mediators, need to memorize, according, as well as memorizing the words that the party have said. Try to grab their key words. I am livid. Try to grab that word livid. I am this, I am that. Try to grab the party's words so they have the exact value, that you are not watering down the intensity, which a lot of mediators think you should not use those words. I am saying try this, because this is a mastery skill that works. So to summarize, the reiteration of someone's words in a mediation table restores balance because of the validation process. Emotions, this emotion of this amygdala hijack will diffuse as the mediation proceeds, and will also diffuse if they feel mediator validation, whether you stay together in a joint session or you do go into a private session. What mediators are missing here is that there's a new meaning that's being created. This amygdala hijacking is coming from a deep place inside them. It's bursting out of them, and a new meaning is being created on the mediation table, because feelings have meanings too. And if we can hold still with this outburst of emotions that are bursting out of a client, but we don't fully understand what they mean yet, if we can hold still for that, we will be able to create a new meaning that we can bring to the mediation table. And now deep feelings possibly have been understood and validated. And now we have a condition of, we don't have a party stuck anymore. We have a party that's flowing with the mediation. And we want to look for flow. We don't want someone stuck and vilified or upset. We want to acknowledge what has happened. And then we just want them to flow with the mediation, bring them back to the mediation as a valued participant, not as someone that was vilified because they can't come to our mediation table now because they're to this and they were to that and we don't like them and they disturb the mediation, they're unwanted. We don't want all that. That absolutely 110% violates our pledge of neutrality that we give to our mediation clients. So with that, Phoebe, let's go ahead and look at our questions, and please come on into the screen with me. You know you are my favorite moderator. And I can't hear you. I cannot hear you, Phoebe, at all. There we go. I can. You and I
said,
we did this.
You're my favorite speaker, Kathleen.
And thank you, everyone, for hanging in with us through all of this. And let's see what people have to say. We're going to go ahead and welcome comments and inquiries and challenges and questions. And let's see what we can talk about, because I do believe in what I was saying, that this is a praxis, and a dialogic praxis is we're going to learn as I hear questions. I answer questions to the best of my ability. And this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to leave. I've left this time for questions because I keep saying that mediation is a dialogic practice. And this is where we get to see where I can maybe learn something new from a comment or a question that's being posed. So now we're going to take the time to dialogue. We're going to practice thinking through these concepts, and we're going to learn from each other.
Okay, wonderful. So someone has asked, firstly, are short breaks in mediation discouraged because of disruption that they might cause?
No, they're not discouraged. It's the way that we take them that's important. Taking a short break has to, after someone blows up, whether they're yelling or crying, we need to make sure that that person is honored at the mediation table. So, especially when I train mediators, I always say, make sure you clarify what you've just heard first before you ask any questions or before you do anything else. So that short break should, in my mind, what works for me in my practice, that short break should come after gratitude. Thank you very much for being willing to be that honest at the mediation table. I heard you say this, 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 and this. And did I get that right? And when they say yes, I would say next, is there anything else? Because I'm going to hold that space for them, Phoebe, and I'm going to make sure that they are all done. I'm not going to go, oh my God, you just caused a panic and a problem, and I want you out of here, and they want you out of here, and the chairs want you out of here. Everyone wants you out of this mediation table, and we're not going to do that. So when they say that they're done talking, I'm going to say thank you very much, and then I'm going to ask, would this be possibly a good time for a break, or shall we keep going? I want to re-empower that client and maybe everyone else in the room to see what they want to do. Do we want to take that deep breath and move forward? As the mediator, I need to remain neutral. This is my mediation. I'm in charge of it. And I don't want anyone shamed. I don't want anyone harmed. I want to stay neutral to both parties no matter what happens. I've got their backs.
Thank you. And someone has asked, as a mediator, how do you kind of separate your own experiences and any kind of emotions the subject matter might make you feel from the facts of the case?
You froze up for the first part of that question. So technical issues continue to be our friend. So can you please repeat that?
Okay, somebody has asked, how as a mediator do you separate your own experiences and emotions from the subject matter of the case?
The best way that I know how to do that is to remain curious. If you're so busy being curious about your parties, it's easy to leave yourself out of the room, off the table, out of your own mind. Curiosity prevents a lot of things that can tip a mediator over. A lot of things, things like that can tip a mediator, over and knock them sideways. And mediators, curiosity can prevent being judgmental as well. So remain curious about what you've heard. Sometimes as a mediator, you can feel the disturbance inside you, whether it's in your head or your chest, so you have a feeling too. And that's what happens with these clients. They have these strong feelings, and they're even compressing the sound waves, in the room with their emotion coming out of them. So it's vibrating through everyone. It's important that we maintain our balance. We can actually feel disturbed on the inside and look poised on the outside. And that's where the mediator courage and confidence that comes in. Only with time can we develop those skill sets. I, at one time, point in a mediation, and this is probably the most challenged I've ever been. I had a person that was cycling in trauma, which is a whole nother issue. I recommend mediators take classes in trauma, because sometimes we get a person at the table that's in true trauma, and the more we summarize for them, the more they cycle in the trauma, and we have to stop summarizing, and we have to give them like a left brain task to help them in the mediation. And this lady actually screamed at me, "You don't understand, Kathleen, because you've never had a miscarriage." Well, guess what? Kathleen's had a miscarriage, and she's sitting 3 feet from me. And I sat there for a second, and this great big crocodile tear went down my face. And when I realized what was happening at the mediation table, I said something that relieved the situation for everyone. And then I asked for that short break. And everyone said yes. But when I went to stand up, I just felt like she did not want me to leave. So I turned one more time to recheck with her and say, are you sure that you want me to leave the room? And she said, no, Kathleen, I want you to stay. That mediation settled because I held the space, even though it was incredibly difficult. And my body was giving me away. Like this big tear went down my face. But I maintained my composure. I'm the mediator. This is what I'm supposed to do. And this mediation settled because she got a chance to unload that trauma. And now her prefrontal cortex regained her 15 IQ points because the trauma was gone. And we proceeded with the mediation.
Wow, that's very inspiring. So people are asking, what's the best way to kind of calm a client down? I think you probably alluded to it there, but when you're going through that really intense cycle of emotions with a client,
it's to stay fully present with them, to hold the space and stay fully present with them. And again, thank you for what I've just heard you say. This sounds like this is a 10 out of 10 for you. This really matters to you. Find the words as a mediator to totally validate what's happening. And there are other people at the table that we may have to tend to because of what's been said, right? But right now we're dealing with this person, and we ask them the mastery question. This is a master. When I say mastery skills, back on my screen 11 that has all the skill sets, when I say this is a mastery skill, that means that it works every single time. I have never seen this skill fail. The mastery question is there anything else? Is there anything else? Is there anything else? You keep asking that question until they get to the bottom of what's disturbing them. Because if you can get that out of them and they still feel safe, you now have new meaning at the mediation table that can be worked with. And I have seen the most glorious agreements birthed out of someone that's exploded with either anger or tears at the mediation table because they unburdened themselves at the mediation table. And this mastery statement that I make, the mediation table can handle everything. That's a mastery statement that I make that lets everyone know that they're safe. And I say that a lot. The mediation table can handle this. That's okay. Don't worry. The mediation table can handle this.
Okay, thank you. And how would you suggest kind of supporting the other party? The party which isn't getting so frustrated and having these intense emotions. What kind of support could you give to them while this is going on?
My style as a mediator, and every mediator needs to find their style, their confidence, and their courage. My style as a mediator is this. Anything that's said at the mediation table or that happens at the mediation table is mine to use as a mediator. I consider it my table. So if you want to say that, or that's going to happen at the public venue of the mediation table and not in private session, oftentimes I'm going to handle it right there. And I'm going to turn to the other party and I'm going to say, so I want you to look, please right at me as your mediator. Now, Phoebe, I'm going to use you as my party. We've never done this one before, have we? I'm going to say, no. Phoebe, as your mediator, I want you to look right at me right now. I want you to talk right to me. I want to know, how was it for you about what you just heard?
It was horrible, Kathleen.
So for you, Phoebe, this was horrible. So I'm talking to you now at the mediation table. I'm not allowing you to talk to the client that's sitting there. So you're safe with me, but guess who's learning about how you feel vicariously through you and me talking to each other is the person at the table. And now they're going to understand by being quiet. And then I'm going to say, so Phoebe, what kind of meaning does this moment have for you? And you're going to talk to me about that. And I'm going to reiterate what I heard you say. So Phoebe, for you, this was a horrible moment. And then I'm going to ask you, Phoebe, what do you need right now? And you're going to tell me what you need. And we're going to go down through that path, and I'm going to say, is there anything else, until we're at the bottom of that? Or Phoebe, we're going to go ahead into private session, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So as a mediator, mediators use their mind, they're pragmatic, but we also should be using our intuition and how we feel organically. We want these to flow back and forth between our right and left brain. So if I'm thinking that you may want to be empowered and talk to me in front of the other person, I'm going to talk to you right in front of them. If I'm thinking that you might need to be reestablished, we're going to go into private session and we're going to talk it out. However it happens, we're talking it out until we get to the bottom of this so we can come back to the mediation table. Because remember, Phoebe, after all of this, we potentially have new meaning on the mediation table. These deep emotions have erupted. Now we have new cognitive meaning, and it's my job as the mediator to make meaning out of the meaning and see what it means for the mediation. And that's why you can get these glorious agreements where people are solving all the problems in their life now because this anger came out or this intense crying came out. Now, like 13 things are being fixed, and they came there for 2 things. So it's pretty amazing what can happen after an amygdala hijack.
Wow, thank you for that answer. People are asking kind of...
Phoebe, one second. I forgot to plug in my laptop, and I'm almost out of battery. So let me go get my charger. Be right back. So sorry.
Okay, we'll have a little break. Please remember, everyone, you can carry on asking your questions to Kathleen. I hope you're enjoying the session. Okay, she's back.
Obviously, if I'm going to do mediations from Texas at 3:30 in the morning, I have to be more prepared. Oh my gosh. All right.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So someone's asked, in your opinion, are sessions more productive when clients come to the mediation without lawyers, or can the lawyers be a hindrance?
I don't think lawyers are a hindrance. I like counsel at the table. They have the legal mind. They have the legal information. They are representing their client. My question for lawyers is, counsel, are you representing your client at this mediation or not? I want to know if they're going to talk for their client or not. Lawyers will say, no, I'm going to let my client speak. Or counsel will say, yes, I am. I want to really respect that lawyer-client relationship, because they've hired that lawyer to speak for them. So if the lawyer wants to speak in the mediation, that's fine. My job as a mediator is clarity. So what happens if counsel tells me that, yes, I'm just going to sit back quietly and let my client speak, and then the lawyer starts speaking, I stop the mediation. I say, counsel, when you first came in, you said that you weren't going to be speaking for your client, and now you are. What's happening? And I do a little check at the door with them. And so they either go, oh, so yeah, sorry, I did say that, or they'll say, well, I want to speak too. So now the clarity at the mediation table is, I've got 2 people speaking to me, the client and lawyer. So I never ever am sad or upset to see counsel come into the mediation table. And if they're there, I'm going to use them for the mediation. So I will ask counsel to draft at the mediation table and put it into the words of the parties, of course, but sometimes there's they can actually draft what the parties want into the agreement, so I can be busy doing other things, and I'll just say, counsel, do you mind drafting what the parties want in this agreement? And they're always willing to help, like 100%, they're always willing to help. So I don't consider them a hindrance at all.
Okay, and is it harder to manage client emotions if you conduct a mediation online? I don't know if you've done any online mediations.
That's all I'm doing right now, except for one trip that I had to make to have a face-to-face mediation.
Okay.
You can see them online. It's interesting. I can see people blushing online and fidgeting online, and it's really clear. As a matter of fact, women have complained that Zoom makes us look ugly because you can see so much. So that's the advantage that we have. We can just see pretty clearly. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think I look 80 right now. So, yeah. So actually, the camera is picking up a lot that unless you mediate a lot on Zoom, you really don't think you would have that issue, but it is telling. It's very much telling.
Okay, and I'm not sure if we have any more questions. Please remember, everyone, you can carry on asking your questions. I'd like to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give like an example of when a client has been really upset and you've thought that it maybe wouldn't work, that you wouldn't be able to get an agreement, but you've turned things around?
Yeah, I can. Mediators, we always have stories. We love to tell them. We can actually go on for hours about stories. I've had several wonderful experience with having rich stories because I have a private practice in mediation, but I have a court practice in mediation where I've gone into the court as a mediator, number one. And then number two, I've been the court, the person in charge of the mediation program in court. So I've conducted these programs in 5 different courts in central Massachusetts for about 13 months a couple of years ago, which was an absolute pleasure to do. So I've got stories. So let me tell you about one time when I was the court manager of the mediation program, and I was observing one of my volunteers by co-mediating with him. So we're co-mediating away, and one of the things I stress when I train is this, before I move on in the story. I train with improv skills because improvisation is really a science, but improvisation helps mediators to build really quick thinking, fleet-footedness in their mediation practice. So the improv drills make you think fast, fast, fast like this, because I want mediators to be able to adjust quickly to something. So here I am sitting with my co-mediator whom I'm observing, and Phoebe, all of a sudden, my co-mediator, who is an elderly man who's very balanced and is an ex-professor at a major university, right? He gets mad at a client in private session. He gets mad. He's sitting next to me, and my co-mediator is mad. And yes, and started to raise his voice to the client. I was like, what? So what to do? This client's angry. My co-mediator is angry. I've never in my life been in that situation where I've had a co-mediator as angry as my client. And they're arguing back and forth at the mediation table. So I turned to them both and I started mediating between the two of them. So I turned to the right and I said, so I'll call him Charles. That was my grandpa's name. Charles, so I'm hearing you say this. And he went, yes. I turned to the client who we'll call Scott. And Scott, I'm hearing you say this. And he said, yes. And I said, so right now at the mediation table, you are both arguing with each other. And they went, yes. So we went down this path, and I looked over at Charles and I said, Charles, and you're actually my co-mediator, and you're arguing with our client. And he went, yes, I guess I am. So we had to take that scenario all the way through to the end. And of course, wow. You know what happened. My co-mediator apologized to the client. And then we went back, and I said, for the clarity, mediation table is about clarity. So can we go back to our mediation now? Basically, like, are you two done? And we did. So that's an example.
That's funny.
It was funny.
Is there like anything that you'd recommend law students do to develop the skills that are required in mediation early on?
I do, and especially this reiteration skill, because frankly, lawyers have clients they can't stand. As a mediator, you can always tell the lawyer that likes their client and the lawyer that doesn't like their client. And frankly, in court, oftentimes lawyers will come to mediation because they haven't been able to control their client. And they're like, they throw their hands up in the air. I'll tell you a story about that one in a moment. And they just don't know what to do. So if law students now will learn these mediation skills when they become attorneys, they will have the skill set to learn to deal with their own clients' own toxic emotions. That's an amygdala hijack that's ready to reveal new meaning. Because unless that comes out and that person feels safe, a lawyer's not going to really ever truly get where his client's coming from. They're just, he or she attorney is just going to regard their client as a problem. So I had a mediation one time in Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is below Boston. And the lawyer came in with a 3-year problem with a client that he couldn't stand. And he even told me, he said, in front of everyone, this mediation process isn't going to work. I've tried mediation before. And, you know, he's sitting at my mediation table. And I said, counsel, I said, I'm going to run my process. Mediation is extremely effective. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. And he goes, okay, go run your process. Now, this is usually lawyers don't do that. See, that lawyer is kind of having a little amygdala hijack right now, right? Yeah. So he is. And I don't want to disrespect him. But what I do want to keep in place is respect for my mediation process. So the mediation continued, and we solved all of the things that was running amok in the past 3 years. We solved all of it. And when we went to leave the mediation to go into the courtroom, just before, the lawyer looked at me, he said, Kathleen, he goes, I apologize. He said, this is a great process, and this has made everything better. So I said, you're welcome. And you don't want to hold that against anyone. But you're always happy when the mediation process has been effective. It's like celebration time. So I was happy about that. So we walk into the courtroom, and now we have to present this mediated agreement to the judge. And this agreement was, you know, it was a family issue, a divorcing couple that were finally, you know, on their way to getting divorced because they had resolved the issues that couldn't be resolved before. So we get in front of the judge, and the judge says, these issues are resolved? And the counsel went, yes. And the judge says, really? In mediation? And the lawyer went, yes. He goes, where? And the judge goes, where's the mediator? I'm like raising my hand. And he said, Kathleen? And I said, yes. He goes, Kathleen, very good job. Thank you for mediating this case. And now I am ordering you, Kathleen. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting ordered. Kathleen, I am ordering you to go to their home and mediate their property distribution. So I was like, okay. I mean, what do you say to a judge? You just say, okay. So I did. And I had to get their name and address and find out where they lived and go to their home. And we went through their personal property. Wow. As part of the mediation process. Yeah. So sometimes mediation takes you out of the box, Phoebe. And only if you're willing to hang on to parties and maintain the stability and maintain your own composure during this amygdala hijack that can happen at the mediation table, and not vilify parties for being genuine at the table. The last webinar that we talked together at, remember, I said it was like with the ground rules, you know, yeah. and not accepting the amygdala hijack and having ground rules. It's almost like, okay, you're this client, so you can't come play at the mediation table because you just don't behave well and you're not following the ground rules. And now you're upset. So, you know, we don't want you. And I'm dramatizing a little bit, but that's really what happens inside of mediators. I was just involved in a role play recently where the mediators did not like the party, all because the party insisted on having her proper name set at the mediation table. She was a doctor, and she just insisted. And the mediators couldn't stand her. And when they got into private session, they said she was a control freak, and they've seen people like her before. And when the one mediator said this and that, and she was totally vilified because she wanted to be called her professional name, which was, you know, doctor, you know, first name and last name.
Okay.
This is what we don't want to have happen at the mediation table.
No. And another question we have is when something during the mediation like presents you with your own kind of strong emotions, how do you process these, like after the mediation, or how do you kind of process them and move on?
That's a great question, because all of that energy is at the mediation table, and it's moving through me as the mediator as well. And I have to maintain, mediators, we have to maintain our composure, right? So yeah, it's a lot. So I exercise. I actually have a yoga practice that I attend. I actually practice Bikram yoga, or they say Bikram, which is a 90-minute, 105-degree workout, which at the end of that workout, I am totally spent. So my suggestion is find an exercise program, because stress stays inside the body, and find an exercise program that makes you feel totally exhausted at the end of it. That is the way that I stay fresh for the next mediation. Sometimes I do 2 mediations a day. My mediation sessions are 3 hours in my private practice, so I have time in a day for 2 of them if people need that. And I am a mess because I maintained my composure and worked very, very hard. I'm cognitively tired. I'm emotionally drained, and I just need to kind of like dump, like a dump truck. You just dump all the stuff out of the truck onto somewhere else. That's kind of what I do. And I find that extremely valuable for me with my personality.
Okay, thank you. That's really good advice. So I think that's all the questions that we really have. I want to thank you for having this really useful discussion with us, Kathleen. You're so committed. You've got up so early this morning to do this. And I want to apologize for the technical difficulties at the start. These things happen, but yeah, I think we're going to leave it here. I'd like to thank everyone for joining, and please remember to fill out the feedback form to receive your certificates. And yeah, once again, thank you to you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
So yeah.
It's always a pleasure, and thank you to Mediate Guru for just spreading mediation and different types of mediation and the way different mediators handle mediation, so we can all learn from each other. And you guys have a tremendous mission, and I thank you all for it so much. And it's a pleasure to be a repeated speaker on the webinars. Next time, I promise I'm going to plug in my laptop.
Hopefully next time we won't have as many difficulties at the start again. I think we have to start like 3 times.
We did. It's a good example for these COVID times with Zoom. I've had Zoom mediations totally disappear, and we just continued on email. So we all need to be fleet-footed and figure out what to do quickly. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathleen. Okay, thank you, everyone. Goodbye for now.
Bye.